Good morning, everyone. Again, this is Ryan Miller with Etna Interactive. This morning's presentation, this morning's webinar is focused on mobile marketing. And we recognize for some time now there's been a lot of confusion about mobile marketing, mobile websites, and mobile apps. So we're going to focus on answering the question, is mobile marketing right for your practice? And then if so, how best to use mobile marketing to connect with and attract new patients? The answer to the question, is it right for your practice? I almost could stop the webinar here if we didn't need to dive into the details and just tell you yes. Yes, mobile marketing is absolutely strategically important and relevant for the medical practice today. But what I want to do now is I want to tell you a little bit about us, and then we're going to break that down and dive deeper into the question. Many of you are Etna Interactive clients, but some are not. And for those that aren't, just a little bit of background about us, a medical web marketing firm. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. We do web design, SEO work, social media marketing, reputation management, email marketing, and mobile work for doctors, hospitals, medical device manufacturers all over the world. This webinar in particular, we're going to focus on building a case for mobile, helping people understand why it's a worthwhile investment for the practice, make the decision between a mobile site or an app. We're going to talk a little bit about best practices in mobile sites, and at the end I've got just a couple of extra slides for some fun things that you can think about doing with mobile. Now, the why mobile part, I think we all kind of instinctively, perhaps intuitively understand that lots of folks have smartphones, that we use them ourselves as a convenience when looking for information or attempting to find or get to businesses. There really is compelling data that makes a case for bringing mobile into a part of your online marketing mix. Today, 34% of Americans own smartphones, but the really interesting thing, the exciting thing that's happening is that share is growing at 9% a quarter. I think that's a growth rate that all of us would love to see for our businesses. And as we dive deeper into the metrics, by next year, so 2013, we're just looking 6 months out, more people are going to use their phones than home computers or work computers to get online. If we look back just in the last year, so that was looking forward, now looking back, there's been a four-fold growth, 4 times growth in mobile search behavior just since the end of 2010. And just kind of the fun stat of the day, by 2015, there will be 1 mobile device for every human on the planet. Now, that's fine. Those are big numbers, and it makes sense. But what about practices who are concerned with local referrals, having someone who's in your market looking for your services? Well, the good news is that's actually, I think, the majority of what's happening in mobile today. 95% of smartphone users are searching for local information, and better than half of those are then going in and either calling the business or visiting their locations based on what they find. And if you look at your statistics today, for many of you, it's going to be looking at Google Analytics or Urchin or a similar program, and look at the user agents report that's telling you what agent they have on their computer that's delivering web content to them. What you're going to find is about 1 in 4 of your website visitors is using a mobile device today. This is based on an analysis that we've done of plastic surgery, cosmetic dermatology, and aesthetic clinics such as medical spas. And that number actually creeps up to about 31% if we include tablets such as iPads in the mix. So already a significant number of your potential patients are hitting your sites in a mobile platform. So what is this distilled down to? We'll plan to have a mobile site in place by 2013. Despite the fact that there's already a lot of people who are accessing your sites on smartphones, you just have to accept and understand that your sites are probably working just fine for them today. They're just not the most convenient. Sites that are developed for the desktop require that we zoom in, pan, and scroll, and if we really want to serve that mobile user well, we want to serve them with mobile content. But the challenge here, and this is something that we see people getting confused by a lot, is do we give them a mobile website or do we need an app? So I'm going to take a breath for a second and remind everybody that if you do have questions, it's okay to kind of blurt them out. Blurting in a webinar is really just a matter of typing them in the question box on the right side of the screen. And if I don't see any questions, I'm going to move right on and talk about mobile sites or apps. So if we look at what those two choices look like, it's important to recognize what the customer experience is, because our gut tells us, hey, you know what, apps are exciting, they're sexy, people are talking about them on the news, but what's the experience like for the consumer? Well, the consumer really wants, needs, and will benefit from a mobile site first, and let me explain why. So if I am going to try to get to you on my smartphone and you happen to have a mobile website, what my experience is going to be like is I'm going to search, I'm going to go to Google, I'm going to use whatever search engine I'm most accustomed to using on my phone. And by the way that mobile websites work is I'm going to instantly receive your mobile website content. I don't have to do anything else. So if I found your website, instead of seeing the full desktop version, I simply get the iPhone version. I get the version that's designed and developed for display on the smartphone. I don't have to think anymore. I don't have to look for anything. I don't have to click or download. I just get it. Now, if I'm downloading a custom app, say an app for the iPhone, I have to find your site. I've got to spot somewhere on your site that there's a promotion for the fact that you have an app. Then I've got to get to the right app store, because there's different stores for an iPhone app, for a BlackBerry app, for an app for Android smartphones. So I've got to get to the right store. I've got to connect to my Wi-Fi network, because most apps in our area have lots of before and after photos in them. That makes those apps big, and anything over 20 megabytes you're not going to download off of a cellular data network. So you've got to connect to Wi-Fi. You click that, you download and wait. And you notice how the boxes are getting lighter and lighter, because I wanted to convey that by the time that they receive your mobile content, they've already been greatly inconvenienced, forced to take on too many steps, and there's a really good chance that that person's just going to fade away. Now, when we look at the distinction, certainly apps have their purpose. They're great for things that you want to function offline. They're great for games and entertainment. They're great for pushing notifications. But what do we see in the medical space today? Really, we see a lot of apps that are simply regurgitations of the mobile site. And there's no reason to go to that expense or to force your customer, your potential patient, to go to that level of inconvenience when you can quickly and easily deliver that same content in a mobile site. Mobile websites do work everywhere, but mobile apps, on the other hand, those things that you have to download, install, and you get the icon on your desktop, are platform dependent. So if I were to ask you, and I'm going to ask you to just kind of answer in your head since we've got everybody on mute, if you were going to right now go out and create an app for one platform, which platform would you choose? iPhone? Android? BlackBerry? A lot of people say iPhone because it's sexy and it's a cool design and it's a great device. But interestingly enough, if we look at what was happening, this is data from the end of 2011, the most recent data available, and we kind of highlight what's happening down here, Google, their Android platform, as of March 2012 is the most recent data, has 51% of the market. Apple, 30%. So if you develop an iPhone app, you get about 1/3 of your potential customers. If you really want to get the larger percentage, you then have to really clone the app, modify the code, make it available in the Android market, keep those two separate pieces of software up to date. Oh, and by the way, RIM, which is BlackBerry, if we want to pick up that last 12 to 15%, that's a third thing we've got to develop and maintain as well. So when we take a step back and we look at apps, that platform dependency means there's a lot more expense, there's a lot more of a challenge in reaching out with an app. And in fact, when we ask consumers, hey, what do you want? Now, this is retail-driven data from Google, but I think it's something we can easily sort of apply to what we're doing in well, kind of retail medicine, fee for service, is 81% of users prefer mobile sites to apps for researching. In this case, researching prices. 79% prefer mobile sites for product reviews, and 63% prefer them for purchasing. And then, so an interesting question that just came in was, is there an age bias for mobile type? Does a particular type of phone tend to have a different age skewed user when we look at the App Store? I'm not familiar with demographic data. What we do know is that RIM and BlackBerry devices are more common for middle-aged corporate users. iPhones actually have a fairly broad distribution, and the Android smartphones, in the U.S. at least, do tend to skew towards younger males. So there's I think we could dive much deeper, but I don't have much beyond the anecdotal knowledge that I've seen in one report. So great question there. At the end of the day, what is the implication of all these things? Well, start with a mobile site before you start investing or exploring mobile apps. I think the novelty of the app is alluring. You are going to serve many more customers much more easily by first deploying a mobile website. Okay, now assuming you're going to do a mobile website, what's the best practice? What is it that you need to do to be effective? And up until last week, this was a really hard question to answer because we had to think about delivery methods, the content that would appear in your mobile app, and then the questions of compliance because we're in the medical space. So the delivery method, the reason for the confusion is that there actually wasn't a really good standard or guideline to follow because we had two approaches. We had this separate approach. So for some of you who may have seen presentations or talked to people about mobile sites before, we have m.yoursite.com, and the www is replaced with an M. www standing for World Wide Web, M standing for mobile. This is a completely separate version of your website that's designed and built and optimized for mobile consumption. But there isn't another approach. So instead of separate, we can go equal. This is called responsive. Some people also call it liquid design. And it's your one site, your same site, that simply responds to the size of the screen with a mobile-friendly layout. Page for page, the content's identical. It is your same site, just has a slightly separate set of instructions. And why it's been so confusing and why we've been kind of watching and waiting to make a bigger recommendation is because, well, the industry leader and the place that we really care about being found in a mobile device is largely on Google. They've got the majority of the mobile search market share. And Google says, hey, use MDOT. Right on their How to Go Mo website, they say, use mobile site redirects. This is a screenshot from Google. But Google also was saying at the exact same time, hey, we're embracing and we're doing responsive design. So this is from their Webmaster Central blog. This is going back to late April there. Our pages should render legibly at any screen resolution. And we mark up one set of content. That means we make one set of pages that are going to be viewed on any device. So they're telling people do MDOT. They were themselves using that responsive design methodology and making a decision that really is kind of a gamble up until June 6th, last week. So here's Google, and this is one way to illustrate. I'm going to illustrate with a video here in just a moment. But this is Google's Chromebook website. It's the exact same site, the exact same page, shown at a full screen resolution and then with the browser narrowed down as if I was going to be on a mobile device. And I realized, this doesn't quite capture what it's about. So I want to show you a quick video based on Starbucks' website. This is a fun thing for you to play with when you get off the call because I think it immediately helps people understand what responsive design is all about. Go back there really quick. Hate when that happens, when your video does not want to play. There we go. So when we look at the responsive design, this is the Starbucks website. I'm capturing a screen of my desktop there, and all I'm doing is I'm shrinking my browser. I haven't changed what I'm on, and I'm about down to the size of a tablet. You'll notice that the menu up at the top of the screen, that layout has changed, and that the feature elements that were on the right side dropped down. Now those features got smaller again, and as we look kind of over on the right-hand side, the menu's actually gone away in favor of this new kind of universal icon that suggests that there's menu items up at the top. I'm going to shrink all the way down now to a full mobile site, and again, the layout changed completely. It's all the same content, but the layout is different. And so when we look at that responsive design, I think that's one of the easiest, one of the best ways to understand what it's all about. Now, Google came out with their official word on mobile just last week on June 6th. And basically what they said is they will support, they'll index, they'll be okay with really three kinds or three approaches to mobile. they'll be okay with responsive design. And in fact, we've seen that's what Google themselves is doing. That's what Starbucks is doing. And it's what Google is recommending to the world as the long-term solution for an approach to mobile. Now, they'll also accept sites that serve all devices on the same set of addresses, but different content. So this is basically somewhere in the middle between responsive design and an MDOT approach. And in this version, you're giving different content to mobile users, but from the same web pages, from the same address. And they'll also support sites that have a separate mobile and desktop version. That's the MDOT approach. So Google's saying, hey, we can work with all of these things, but you know what we prefer? We prefer the responsive design approach. Now, in terms of choosing which way to go, one of the challenges that we have is, we're obviously concerned about this because we're thinking about things like how do we rank on Google. So today, when we look at it, it's worth noting that when you search for, in this particular case, Los Angeles plastic surgeon, one of our clients there in the first organic result, and you look at them on a mobile device as well, we get the exact same set of search results, with the only exception being they're not including the local search result set, the little pinpoint dots with addresses on them, on the mobile device today. So in looking at this, what Google is really telling us with responsive design is that for right now at least, one set of pages is all you need, and we'll be able to track and understand the distinction between them. Interesting. So the question is, what sort of regulatory considerations do we need to consider for responsive design? One of our attendees just brought up. I'm going to step back from that and say I think the way I interpret the question is there's regulatory issues that pertain to being a medical provider and how one communicates on the web, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. But as it relates to technical considerations, being in a mobile environment, really more the challenges that we run into are challenges around usability. I'm going to navigate with my thumbs, and I've got big man-sized thumbs, so I need to have big buttons and clear navigation. I'm going to be, in my particular case, on my iPhone, and iPhones don't support Flash. So there are a lot of technical considerations in mobile, in doing a mobile site well, that are going to be true whether you choose responsive or an MDOT approach. And then separately, because we're dealing with medicine here, we'll talk about what those kind of regulations look like. Now, in terms of moving to a recommendation, we've got to recap what we know about mobile sites today. So right now, search varies, the search results vary only a little bit between smartphones and your desktop search. And in fact, for most searches, at best, there's one or two slightly different results. And it doesn't appear to be connected today to whether those different results have a mobile presence or not. It has to do with Google guessing at what might be different about the context of your search because you're doing it on your phone. So we know that they're doing some things different, and that they actually have a different spider, a program that goes out, crawls around, and gobbles up content, eats content into the Google index, specifically for smartphone websites. So we know that Google is trying to digest mobile content differently. Now that suggests that they're going to want to do something with that. They've also given us new coding standards, especially for people who are choosing the MDOT approach, that allow us to relate the main pages of your website to the alternate versions you've created for that separate MDOT mobile approach. So they created a whole new coding standard that allows us to relate a mobile page back to its corresponding full-site desktop page. And we know that Google's philosophy has always been to do right by the searcher. Now, if we add all of these ideas together, that they're already showing some slight differences in smartphone results, that they're eating up and taking in mobile pages, that they're making a clear distinction and allowing you to declare, hey, this is the mobile version and it corresponds to this version of our page, and they want the best experience for the mobile device. I think we can safely predict that A, having a mobile device is going to benefit you because there'll be more pages, a mobile site, because there'll be more pages that Google can read in. And whether you choose the responsive approach or the MDOT approach, you will have the opportunity, I think, to be a party to benefit from differences that are going to begin to emerge in mobile rankings simply by the presence of having that mobile site. The question just came in, do we have to claim ownership now of the MDOT, your company m.com? It's a great question, and to answer it, the MDOT or the www dot, that's a subdomain, it's a prefix to your name, and no, you don't have to claim it. If you own yourdomain.com, the example, I'll use our domain, etnainteractive.com, you automatically own everything that you might want to put before that. Now, really, there's only a couple of prefixes, www, m, that are really commonly in use. But you could easily set up something, for example, we do this with a lot of foreign language sites, like the French language version of our site might be fr.etnainteractive.com. So those are something that you can configure on your own. You can do them at any time. You don't need to take any action to claim it. It's simply an attribute or a part of the domain name that you already own. So summing up in that section, for a short-term stopgap approach, MDOT is probably going to be a good solution. Now, what I mean by this is there are a lot of folks out there, maybe you have a site that's 2 or 3 years old, so it uses coding methods that don't necessarily lend themselves to a responsive design today. Or maybe you have a really large, complex site with pages that have really complicated layouts that wouldn't flex or respond very well, or might simply be too expensive to convert to responsive design today. Or maybe you have a lot of flash features or functionality today, and replacing that with style sheets might be time or cost prohibitive. You can get around any of the limitations of having an older or historic site by simply creating an MDOT site. Google will accept it. Google will be able to read it. And it will work just fine for you as a way today to get something mobile up quickly and cost effectively. But the ultimate solution, where you want to be with your next website redesign, is in responsive design. And it's going to influence some of the decisions that you make in your navigation. It will influence some of your design and development team's decisions in the way they lay out pages. We're basically going to be embracing a design that flexes, that responds easily, and that feels very similar and equally useful regardless of the platform. Now, I'm going to, as we sort of near the end of the presentation here, I'm going to spend just a couple minutes talking about the basic content considerations. The bottom line is, if you're working with a development firm that you trust, they're going to be able to provide you with ample guidance on best practices for your content. But just remember that you as the client, as the business, when you start having input around how you want it to look and function, that mobile is really about functionality and your user first. People are using mobile sites to get your phone number, to get access to your email direction, get driving directions to your practice, probably more than anything else that they're doing on those sites. But your service menu will still be popular. It will be very common to see people sitting in your waiting room browsing your photo gallery on a mobile device, or those on the call who are in aesthetic practices. They'll also be looking for practice information. If you have Flash content on your site, you're going to want to replace that with HTML5 or AJAX or some other technology, because Flash doesn't play on any of the Apple mobile devices, including the iPhones and iPads. And then concentrating on clean navigation, big thumb-sized buttons, really important to get people through that content. Now, compliance is something I want to say just a few words about, because there's a lot of people out there who are deploying mobile quickly and forgetting about the fact that, hey, you know what, medicine, we got to respect the law first. All of the same guidelines that apply to you in the way that you communicate and accept communications from patients on your main website apply on your mobile site. So you've got to avoid false, fraudulent, misleading claims. You've got to be honest and ethical, and you've got to respect patient privacy. So if you're a plastic surgeon and you belong to ASPS, you've got to follow their guidelines that any stock imagery you use has a model overlay. So you're being honest about the fact that the person who's depicted on the page isn't a patient. If you're accepting forms or allowing people to send email or text messages to you from your site, you've got to remember that HIPAA mandates that they actively accept, means check a box or click a button that says, hey, I understand that this message is inherently insecure. before that message gets transmitted and accepted by the practice. So even though it's mobile, even though it's new and exciting, we still have to follow those old best practices in compliance and protecting patient privacy. So just a few fun points to wrap with, and then we'll take some questions. I think one of the best uses for mobile today is actually one of the ones that we see used least often by practices, and it's using text appointment reminders. For those of our clients who use these services, for some it's integrated directly into their practice management software. Others use services like Solution Reach or Smile Reminder, where unfortunately you have to double enter appointment data. But if this is the preferred communication method of your patient, it's a great way to get your message directly in front of the patient and immediately get a confirmation back from them that, yep, they are planning to attend. QR codes, I think, are greatly misunderstood, and unfortunately they're easily misused. So QR just stands for quick response. For someone who has a QR reader installed on their phone, it allows us to point our phone at the phone camera at this, scan it in, and we could either cause the phone to open a web page, create an email message, create a new contact card that's going to be entered into their contact records, receive a text message, or send a text message. So we can do some fun things with this. I think probably one of the most fun things we've done is for one of our clients in their lobby area where they have skincare products displayed. They have a little QR code next to each product with a short that launches a short video optimized for display on the smartphone. That is the staff talking about why they love that particular product and how they recommend it be used, what skin types it's appropriate for. Sort of like a virtual sales assistant. So the great thing about QR codes is that they're really, really flexible, but you want to think about how you deploy them and actually give something useful to the person on their smartphone. The last thing, and this is one that I've not seen a lot of clinics try yet, but I'm really eager to see, especially those with recurring non-surgical service, is using virtual loyalty cards. There's services out there like Punched and Cardify that allow you to track consumer uses of recurring services, coming back for facials, coming back for injectables, actually get data about their usage habits, remind and encourage them to come back in, and reward them with free services if they are loyal to your clinic. So some really great kind of fun things out there that you can try. Now, that said, there are certainly other things you can do on mobile, more things than I think most of you have time or budget for. There's ads inside of mobile apps, mobile check-in and rewards like Foursquare, and mobile games and scavenging. Now, I'm not necessarily going to recommend any of these things. We've not seen the best response for our clients here, just by the nature of the medical space, but certainly some other things that you might try and explore. I'm going to sum up here, and I'm going to welcome questions to be typed in, so if you want to start typing the questions, go for it. But plan to have your mobile site in place by 2013 at the latest. Embrace the MDOT approach for rapid deployment, or if you have an older site, but choose the responsive design approach for your next big redesign, because that's really going to be the way of the future for mobile. Focus on the features and the benefits that mobile users care about. This is a time where it's a little bit less about aesthetics and more about utility, but don't forget your compliance consideration. One question just came in, what was the second site that I recommended after Punched? And that's called Cardify, C-A-R-D-I-F-Y. Now that said, I'm going to thank you for your time this morning, let you know that if you do want to learn more, be sure that you subscribe to receive our newsletter or follow us on Facebook where we announce all of our webinar content, and invite you to drop in some new questions. Okay, I'm not answering that question, but thank you, Carla. Other questions related to mobile before we wrap up today? So the question I see coming in right now is ultimately people who are searching for mobile device what are they looking for? Are they looking for information? Are they looking for contacts? Are they looking for photos? What is most important to have? It's a great question. So we're able to look at page usage reports from mobile devices and mobile sites, just like we would look at the page usage report for your main site. And what it shows us is that the contact utilities, so the click-to-call function, the click-to-send an email function, and the directions pages are really the most popular clicks on the mobile site. So these are people who already know about you. They're likely already interacting with you in some way. And that mobile site and those clicks are simply, it's great customer service. We're making it easier for them to do business with you. However, if we look at the other side and look at, are they actually using the content of the site? The answer is actually yes. For many people, they are still using their mobile device to answer questions and solve problems. Not surprisingly, before and after photos are just like on your main site, the most popular, the most clicked pages of your site in general, followed by menu of services, information about the clinic, information about the doctor. It's a really interesting, I was very surprised to note that those preferences are directly in line with the usage patterns that we see on main websites, which really just furthers the argument that we saw in the data at the beginning. Mobile devices are really replacing the desktop. A question just came in. What is the market penetration of QR codes? Do people actually use them? What about the sophistication of the QR codes? And what would be the aesthetics, the demographic for the people who might use them? It is a great question, Thomas, and one of the things I'll share back that I think you understand intuitively, because you're probably like me. I didn't have a QR reader on my phone until maybe about 6 to 9 months ago. And I think my exact statistic may be wrong, but I believe the adoption rate of QR codes for mobile phone users in the U.S. is about 14%. So, and I'm pretty sure it's under 20% based on one of the last articles that I've read on it. So fairly low adoption rate. We expect to see that adoption rate going up, though, because the downloading or the installation of a QR code reader is really tied to the perceived utility. I'll share in all humility what caused me to download it is I was in Bed Bath & Beyond buying an appliance, and the appliance manufacturer had a little sign, a little point-of-sale display for an instant like 15% off coupon for that device if I scanned a QR code that was mounted right above it in the display. So on the spot in the Bed Bath & Beyond, I downloaded my QR code reader. I hadn't really needed it before, and used it to get an instant coupon that I just walked up to the check stand. They scanned my phone. That manufacturer got a little bit of information about me in response for the savings they rewarded, and it was that moment that caused me to download. So it's not well adopted today. We can expect to see it grow. And if you give your patients a great reason to use it, if there's a good utility, it's going to be something that's going to benefit from them. I wouldn't recommend necessarily using QR codes out on the street for the centerpiece of an advertising campaign. But when we're talking about, for example, being in practice, adding utility, helping patients get to someplace fast, it has a good usefulness there. It looks like that's the last of our questions this morning. I want to again thank everybody for coming in. We will be having another webinar here in just a couple more weeks talking about what I think is one of the most exciting developments to happen on the web in the last 5 years, and that's the idea of authorship, of owning content on the web. So stay tuned for announcements about that, and I'll thank you this morning for your time.